Tacoma is a science fiction game that explores the themes of corporate greed and AI. It was just free on the Epic Games Store last week, so let's review it and see if it's worth your time. So in Tacoma, you explore the wreckage of the spaceship that has suffered from some disaster. You uncover the story of the disaster, the world that it's set in, and you get to learn more about each of the characters that are stationed there. It really is a walking sim though, which, if you're not familiar, basically means that you walk around and interact with the objects in the world around you, but there's really no other more advanced gameplay. Realistically, you complete the game by just walking through and clicking a few buttons, and that's because the game is completely story focused. It's a story first and last game, and you uncover the story by recovering recordings of past events, which are basically these scenarios with the station's past crew members you can watch and interact with. Most of the recordings have all 6 of the crew members there, so you have these different side conversations you can walk around and listen to. You can interact with certain characters more specifically to progress the story. Interact in this case means you can read more emails, read more letters, read more personal information about each of them. It's not like you're talking to the characters themselves, it's just more detail, more storytelling. Throughout the game, you can really get a sense of the personality of each character and the relationships between all of them. It's nice to be able to flesh out each of their personalities, and you can explore all their rooms and areas and where they work, so you can really get a feel for who all of them are, and just exploring the environment is really cool. You can also look out the windows and see the space station and stuff in this nice little setting this game has. And of course, there's also the main story, where you learn more about the disaster, how the crew tries to deal with it, with death facing them in the eye. I'd say it's an enjoyable story, which is important because this game is so story focused. But it's really not that complex as a whole. I thought the ending was fine, I thought themes in the game were nice, but it wasn't particularly deep or philosophical or anything. I think it's partly because if you have some exposure to the sci-fi genre, you've probably seen a lot of the game's themes played out more thoroughly in other contexts. Again, I did enjoy it, but it didn't really make me think that hard about the game's themes. It's also a pretty short game and took me about 2.5 hours to complete, so that might limit some of the depth of the story, but I think it could have gotten a little deeper into exploring those themes. And the last thing I'll say is that there's the option to play through the game with commentary, which I probably wouldn't recommend for your first playthrough, but it can be a great way if you're into the game to get sort of a behind the scenes look at it, to how the developers actually made the game itself. So is Tacoma worth your time? I think it can be a really enjoyable game to play through in an afternoon. It has a nice story, and it's a nice little world to explore, but it's not overly complex, and it really has minimal gameplay. It's a walking sim, and that's just not for everybody. I think that I enjoyed games like What Remains of Edith Finch a little bit more, because they have slightly more complex interactions and gameplay, but if you want to explore a sci-fi short story in video game form, it can definitely be worth checking out, especially if you got it for free last week on the Epic Games Store. Please like this video to help me out if you enjoyed it or found it helpful, and subscribe if you want to see some more content from me. Thanks for watching my Tacoma review.